Okay, so this is basic setup number 1. Today we'll be going over company setup and entering employee profiles. Pretty much we're going to put in some general system settings, and I'm going to show you how to put your employees into the system. A couple of things we're going to be going over today. We're going to put in our company profile, which is just your department's information. I'm going to show you how to create employee titles, which are really just ranks, how to create groups, which is how our employees are going to be organized, whether we do it by department or squad or unit. After we do that, I'm going to show you how to actually put your employees into the system through what we call employee profiles. And then after that, the last thing I'm going to show you how to do is just add some employee pay information, things like unpaid lunch, even payroll-related functions, which you may or may not use, but it certainly wouldn't hurt to show you. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get right into it. So logging in, like I said before, for the duration of the setup classes, you're going to be using one account, and that account is the security administrator account. And the username is SECADM, just like that. And now the password is going to be the same thing. This is the account you will be using for the next several classes. We will show you eventually how to create your own, account, your own username and password. But for the first, well, really for all the basic setup classes, you're going to be using these credentials. Now, the username is not case sensitive. The password, however, is either all lowercase or all uppercase. But the password will always be SECADM. If you put it in all lowercase and it says invalid password, do it in all uppercase, and vice versa. If you do it all uppercase and it says invalid, then do lowercase. So I'm going to click sign in. And now, I'm using my own database, which is, it does have information already in it. So what you see when you log into your system and what you're seeing on my system will look significantly different. The best way to think of your system currently, if this is your first time using it, pretty much it's a shell right now, and through these basic setup classes, we're going to start populating information. So by the time the basic setup classes are done, you'll have a fully functioning scheduling system ready to go. So, moving on to the first thing, we need to set some general system settings, and to do that, we're going to go to the administration menu. This is kind of like our main menu, by the way, this blue ribbon. And when you click on any one of these items, what happens is it loads a sidebar pertaining to what we clicked on. And for the everything we're going to be doing today is going to be found in the administration menu item. And then we have sub-menus on the left. We click on an option, it expands, and then it has a list of all the screens pertaining to that particular sub-menu. So the first couple of things, we're going to be using the company center, the first option under administration. And we're going to click on the first screen, application control. And now here's where we can put in some general system settings. Obviously, you do have the option to, put in the settings that you wish. However, we, as far as, basic setup, and, we're going to show you some recommended settings, right? Because you might not know what all these settings pertain to just yet. So I'm going to go through what VCS recommends that you check on for now, and then later on, once you get more familiar with the system, if you do want to go back in and change these, but this is down the road, you always have that option. So the first thing we need to do in application control is set the current schedule dates. And by the way, we're going to take it from the top and just go, from top to bottom. So the first thing is the current schedule dates. The current schedule dates are the default reporting dates that really define when time off needs to be scheduled in order to draw from the correct bank. Usually you set this either by calendar year, like I have here from January 1st to December 31st, or by fiscal year. Now keep in mind, these current schedule dates must be updated every year. Reports use this. So if you run a report that says, we want to run it for the current year, these are the dates it's drawing from. And with time off, when we schedule time off, we needed to pull from the correct banks and pull the correct amount. So we need to set the current schedule dates to, however your department does it, whether it's by calendar year or by fiscal year. Now, as far as overtime control goes, we don't need to worry about that at this point in time right now. We're going to skip right on down to other controls. So now I have some checkboxes checked. These are the recommended settings. So I'm just going to go through and explain what each of these checked options really mean for you. So the first one, allow changes to future approved days off. This just allows supervisors to have the ability to edit or modify approved time off entries. So if someone puts in for time off and it gets approved, but say, they put in for vacation, but now it needs to be put in for personal time instead, well, this checkbox will allow us to make changes even once it's approved. The next one, checkbox, hide pay rate on the employee statistical report. Really all this does is it just hides pay-related information from all employees who are not admins. The next checkbox, show jobs on daily schedule. This will, if anyone's ever assigned to a job assignment, it just posts that job assignment next to their name on a daily schedule. That's all that's doing. The next checkbox, always email receipt. This turns on our email service that it sends notifications automatically for time off and overtime entries, switch entries, training assignments, extra duty assignments, court assignments, or scheduled reassignments. So pretty much anytime, something happens to an employee in the system, whether their time off gets approved or they get moved around on the schedule, the system will automatically email them with this checkbox turned on. Now the next one, show denied days web. Really what that's doing is it's just going to display denied time off on daily schedules. This is typically useful, say someone calls out sick on a day that they had previously requested off for and were denied. The next checkbox, hide social security number. This really just removes the social security field from an employee profile, which is where we get our employees into the system. We create employee profiles for them. So this just removes the social security field if you don't want to, have that information in the system. That's it. So those are the recommended settings that VCS, would suggest doing, at least for now, until you get more comfortable with the system. Obviously there are some other options available, which we go into detail about in our guide, which is available on GoToTraining. You get it when you sign up for the class, so you should have access to that. That pretty much just outlines everything that we're currently going over and we'll go over in today's class. So now some other recommended settings. We need to put in the time zone that your department's in. Reciprocate restriction, this is referring to pretty much schedule switches. It determines the window in which switches can be requested. So if your department allows people to swap schedules, do they have a certain amount of days in which the switch needs to be completed? meaning if Officer A switches with Officer B, or say Officer B is coming in for Officer A needs to make it up to him maybe within 2 weeks, a pay cycle. In that case, you would put 14 in here. If you don't have any restrictions, you could just leave it set to 0. If you want to link it to pay periods, you could just put in capital P for pay period under reciprocation restriction. The next thing you can choose is a time format, whether you want standard or military time. I recommend military just because there are a lot of sections of the program that are in military time. So if at least if you select military, everything will be consistent. Whereas if you select standard, you might run into some screens that are still showing military time. And then the last thing, you need to put in your URL for the web portal, which you were given. It should have been included in an email that contained the download for this desktop application. Putting that in just really, it links your web portal to this desktop application. So once you're all set up, you can use the website for your scheduling and things like that. So this putting in that URL really turns on the website for you. Once you're done, we want to click Save. And these are system-wide settings. So now that was, as far as topic 1 goes, that was it. The microphones are unmuted. So if you have any questions about anything we just did, you can ask them now. All right, if no one has any questions, we'll just continue with our next topic. So the next thing we need to do is fill out the general setup screen. The general setup screen is where we just kind of put in our own department information. So once again, we go to Admin, we want to click on Company Center, and then we want to go down to the screen that says General Setup. And then here, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're just going to put in our company name, address, city, state, zip code, phone number, and then site code, which is used for our VCS app for Android and iOS. The site code was also included in the email that you received from us that contained the download for ScheduleApp. So putting that site code in here links this database to the app. You can also use it for web portal sign-in, but either way, that site code can be found in that email that you were sent that had the download for ScheduleApp in it. So once we're done, we want to click Save. And that's it. So that was topic number 2, pretty easy. The microphones are open again. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, that means you modified 5 officers' skills.
Okay. So now we are going to put in our groups. Now, groups are really just referring to, either departments, divisions, squads, platoons, however your employees are organized currently. We're going to put in those groups in here as well. Now, groups are used to define email defaults for time off and overtime requests, meaning you can set it up so that anyone in, Group A, whenever they put in for time off, it automatically goes to a list of emails that we put in there. So the Group A supervisors or anything like that. Also, a lot of the screens in the system can be filtered by groups, reports. When you when you go to select from a list of employees, you can filter it and say, just show me people in Group A. Monthly and weekly schedule views are also arranged by group. So when you pull up a weekly schedule, it's organized by group, and you just you go to the group that you want to pull, and then it shows their weekly or monthly schedules. So to put those in, we're going to go to Administration, but we're going to get out of Company Center, and now we're going to go to List Center. I'm going to open that up and click on Set Up Groups. So now on the Set Up Group screen on the left, here's a list of all the groups that are currently in my system. Like I said, this database is already populated, so it might look a little different than what you see when you go to this screen. But really, you only need to fill out two things. So to put in a new group, we're going to click New, and then you'll notice everything on the right kind of whites out. We have two tabs on the right, General and Email Destination. We're just going to stick with the General tab for right now. We're not going to put in any email destinations yet. It's too early for that. So we go to General. We want to make sure this active checkbox is turned on. That just makes sure it pretty much makes the group active within the system, where it makes us able to use it. After that, we need to put in a code, and a code is just an easily identifiable term for the group. It's a 5-character max, so it's just a group abbreviation. So like here, as you can see, my records group, the code is just REC. My Squad A group is just SQ space A. So if I want to, put in my new group, I can put in up to 5 characters for the code. So maybe I'll just do, I'll say, maybe I'm going to do Division 1. So I'll put DIV space 1. And now in description, we have a little bit more room. We can put in up to 25 characters. This is just a description of the code. And this is what appears on various schedule views. So I'm just going to spell out Division 1. Don't worry about security sections. All you really need to do is put in the code, description, save, and then you click New, and then you put in your new group, or the next group. And you just keep doing that till you have all your groups represented in the system. Keep in mind that these groups are not shift specific. Right? For instance, if you have a Squad A that works days and a Squad A that works nights, you can just make one generic Squad A. You don't need to say Squad A days, Squad A nights. You're able to differentiate, people based on their shift by their rotations that they're assigned to. So you want to keep it very kind of generic as far as groups go. You don't want to get too specific. Because we're able to make distinctions, in other parts of the system. So the mics are open. Does anyone have any questions about putting in groups?
That is correct. If you need one across the board, then just put one.
Okay. Next, we're going to put in our titles. So I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to stay in List Center, and I'm going to click on Set Up Titles. Now, what titles are referring to, they're a type of rank, and it's used to identify employees. Titles are only used for schedule-specific purposes. It has nothing to do with pay. It's really just for scheduling. That's it. And you're just going to put in your ranks or titles, however you want to refer to them. Through this screen, we click New. And kind of similar to Set Up Groups, on the left is just going to be a list of everything that's currently created. So, like I said, I already have some stuff in here. But as far as putting in a new title, we want to click New to clear all this out. And now that, some of these fields might look familiar. Once again, we need to put in a code, which is just, an easily identifiable term. This is what appears on a daily schedule. We can put in up to 5 characters. So for instance, I have, officer. Officer is a title. The code is OFC. Now you'll notice when we go to like this schedule here, those titles show up next to everyone's name. So, detective has DET as the code, so that's what shows on the schedule. I have chief, DC, deputy chief, LT for lieutenant. So the code is what shows up on your daily schedule. So we can put in, maybe I'm going to do assistant. I can do maybe ASST. And then next I need to put in a description, which is, we're allowed up to 25 characters. This is what appears in some drop-down menus, so I can just put in assistant, I can spell it out. And now sort order, which we haven't seen before. Sort order is a number that allows you to sort your employees by the hierarchy of the titles and what we assign to them. Pretty much, your higher ranking titles are going to have lower sort orders, right? So if chief would be number 1, deputy chief number 2, captain 3, lieutenant 4, sergeant 5, officer 6, kind of like that. Now these don't need to be unique in that my officers are at a 6, my school resource officers, while it's a different title, maybe it's the same rank-wise, they're also a 6, and my detectives are also a 6. So you can have multiple titles with the same sort order if they're at the same rank. Maybe it's just a different title. So in this case, I'll make it, a 7. I click save, and I'm just going to keep, click new again and put in my next title. I just keep on doing that until I get in, I get all my titles into the system. So the microphones are open again. Does anyone have any questions about putting in a title? All right, next we're going to put in our employee profiles. Now an employee profile is where we create individual profiles that contain employee-specific information. The information that's put into this profile links to various operations in the system, like payroll, scheduling, things like that. An employee must have an employee profile in order to use the system. When we create our login credentials, which you won't do until the last basic setup class, it needs to link to an employee profile, meaning if someone doesn't have an employee profile, they don't exist within the system. So everyone needs one, and it grants them access to the scheduling system. So to create those, we're going to go back to the admin menu, except now we're going to go on, we're going to click on Employee Center, and we're going to select Employee Profile. Now this screen has a lot of stuff into it, but we're going to keep it simple for today. We're only going to be, out of all these tabs that we have on the right, we're only going to be visiting the first 2, general and contact information. On the left is a list of all the employees that are currently in my system. So as you start putting people into the system, you're going to see this list get, more populated. So to put in a new employee, we're going to click New. And then we need to fill out some information in the first 2 tabs. Now, as far as what needs to get filled out, well, obviously everything in red. Everything else that isn't in red is just optional. It's used for informational and reporting purposes. You don't absolutely have to have anything in there. There are some fields that we strongly recommend you fill out, even though they're not red. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But in order to save an employee profile, the things in red are, what you have to fill out at least. So we're going to put in our employee's first name and last name. So we'll do one together. Let's see, we'll put in first name, middle initial. You don't have to do it, but if you want, go ahead. And then last name. Now, everything else in this personal details section is optional. You know, date of birth, sex, driver's license number, all that stuff. But the bare minimum, you need first name, last name. And once you're done with that, we're going to move down to record details. The first thing in record details that we need to fill out is the employee code. This is just a code. It's usually an employee ID or, you know, first initial and last name. This is what identifies the employee. So if everyone already has employee IDs, you could pop those in here. If your department uses, you know, badge numbers, you could put that in here. If you don't have anything like that, you know, you could use something like first initial, last name, like I currently have here, which is what I'm going to do. So I have my employee code in. Then I need to tell the system what group they belong to, and this is going to use those groups that we previously put in. So I select from the drop-down, which contains, you know, all the groups that I have in here, what they belong to. So I could just say, you know, she belongs to Division 1, the group I just put in. Then after that, we need to tell the system what their title is. So I select from the drop-down once again. I'm going to select the assistant title that I just created. And the last required field is seniority. Now for seniority here, I would recommend using seniority by title. This number just determines sort orders for various schedule views. You know, obviously 1 is the highest seniority, and then, you know, as the numbers increase, it's a lower seniority. So we recommend that you do seniority by title, meaning maybe your administration is seniority numbers 100 through 199, you know, lieutenants 200 through 299, sergeants 300 through 399, officers 400. That way, if someone ever gets promoted, you're only changing that one seniority number. You don't have to change everyone else's. So by doing seniority by title, kind of gives you a cushion. You know, a lot of people, they prefer doing it this way just for the simple fact that if they ever do have to promote someone, they're only changing one number as opposed to everyone in their department. So in this case, I can just do 799. Now, everything else on this screen is optional. However, we do have some recommended fields, or fields that we recommend you fill out. The first one would be hire date and accrual date. To put those in, we check the box. As you'll notice, if the box is unchecked, I can't edit this information, but once it's checked, I can edit it. So you're going to put in their hire date, July 1st of 2015. Then after that, we need to put in the accrual date, which most of the time it's going to mirror the hire date, but this is the date that's used to determine years of service. If you put in any, if you have any like, you know, time accrual rules, you know, say like after 3 years of service, you get 100 hours of vacation, you know, something like that. But we're going to put that in here under accrual rules. And now as far as these checkboxes up here, if any of these checkboxes apply to someone, just mark it. This is really just for informational purposes. So if they're a part-time employee, mark it. If they're an exempt employee, mark it. You know, if they get shift differential, if they're a civilian, you know, you just want to check the boxes. And now we're done with this general tab, so we can move to contact information next. Now, there's nothing in red here. It's all optional here. However, you need at least an email address and a text message address because, you know, like I said before, the system does notifications automatically. using these two fields. There are some screens that send emails. There's other screens that, send text messages, with overtime and things like that. So at least in the email address and text message address field, we want to put in the employee's email, and then, based on whatever service provider they have, so I know for example, because I use Verizon, it would be my number and then at vtext.com. You want to use the MMS address for text message address, and this is really used for like overtime call-out related functions. Everything else like address and emergency contact, you don't have to fill it out, but if you want to, you can. And I'll put in a fake number. And then that's it. I can click save. And now it's going to actually put that person in the system. If I scroll down this list, there's Chris, the person I just created. And you're just going to have to do that for all your employees. So once you've done putting in the employee, make sure you save. You can navigate in between tabs without saving. That's okay. But definitely save after each person, and then click New to actually, put in the next person, or else you're going to overwrite previously entered information, which we don't want to do. So the microphones are unmuted. Does anyone have any questions about putting in employee profiles? All right, well, that's going to bring us to our last topic, putting in employee pay information. So we have a pay info screen under Employee Center. We're going to click on pay info. And now this screen allows us to add employee salary information to the system. You can use this screen to kind of keep track of an employee's salary history and, for various reporting purposes. But there are some things that we even if you're not using the system for payroll purposes, there are some things that we strongly recommend you put in here. Looking at this screen on the left is going to be a list of everyone that we have in the system, so everyone who has an employee profile, really. So let's find that person we just created. All right, so I click on their name. Now I have three tabs up here. I have payroll, pay rates, and salary history. We're going to stick with the first tab, payroll, for now. So the very minimum, what we recommend you put in a payroll ID, and this is just a payroll code that refers to that particular employee. So, maybe it's an actual, number. If you do plan on using payroll through the system, you can put in standard hours scheduled per pay period, which is just the amount of hours an employee's pay is based off of. For example, 80 hours for biweekly payments. If they're salary employees, you would just put in that standard amount of hours that they're getting paid for each pay period. And then the last thing is if they get unpaid lunch. Because what happens is you include lunch in shift times, right? So say I'm scheduled to work 9 to 5, but I get an hour of unpaid lunch, even though I'm on the schedule for 9 hours. All right, say I'm scheduled to work 8 to 5. I'm scheduled for 9 hours, but I'm only getting paid for 8 because I get 60 minutes of unpaid lunch. So putting in something in here tells the system that, whatever I'm scheduled to work, deduct an hour when it comes time to pay me because of an unpaid lunch. Now, if you do get paid lunch, you could throw those minutes in there as well. Like I said, it's kind of built into the shift, so paid lunch really doesn't matter, but unpaid lunch does. Also, with the unpaid lunch, when you put in for like time off, unpaid lunch is omitted from time off calculations, meaning, say I want to take the day off and I work 8 to 5. I put in that I'm taking off 8 to 5, but I'm not getting deducted 9 hours. I'm only getting 8 hours deducted because one of those hours is unpaid. So then once we're done with that, we're going to move to pay rates. And then you would just fill out for pay rate 1, if they have an annual salary, you could put that in there. And the nice thing about using the annual salary field is if I put something in here, every other field gets automatically calculated. What I get a month, biweekly, weekly, hourly, my overtime rates, time and a half, double time. If, say, you have a part-timer, and maybe they don't have an annual salary, they just have an hourly rate, you would put that in hourly, but the thing is, it's not going to automatically convert any of the other fields. So then you would need to put in hourly, you would need to manually put in, what their straight time pay rate is, what their time and a half pay rate is, and then, double time. And then once you're done with that, you need to check this box to set an effective date. So this is just telling the system, effective as of this date, they're going to this is what they get paid. And then if you add it to salary history, which I will do right here. Actually, let's change this. As of today's date, actually, let's make it their hire date. So that was 7/1/2015. I click Add to Salary History. Now what that does is it adds it to this Salary History tab, and you can use this screen to keep track of, when someone gets a raise, anything like that. It's all timestamped, so you can use this to track employees' salary, increases or changes, anything like that. Don't worry about pay rate 2. You only got to fill out pay rate 1. And this, you don't have to use this portion of the system, but if you would like to kind of keep track of, say, overtime valuations and things like that, at the end of the year, you want to see how much it's costing you to, how much overtime is costing your department. It uses these pieces of information to determine, those numbers when it comes time for reporting. So once you're done with that, you just click Save. And then you're going to do that for all of your employees. Now make sure you save after each employee. If you don't, whatever you put in is going to get wiped out pretty much. It's not like you save it at the very end. You save it after each employee. That's very important. So the microphones are open. That was it as far as what we're going over in today's class. Does anyone have any questions for me about anything that we went over today? Okay, so I just want to remind everyone that, this session was recorded, so you will have this video to refer back to. You also have the guide for today's class included in the materials section of the GoToTraining menu. Also, we have knowledge base articles and documentation and guides, things like that, available on our support site, www.VCS. The number 4, and then the letter U.com, VCS4U.com. So the next class, setup 2, you'll be going over putting in, time off codes, overtime codes, pay types, things like that. But I definitely recommend, whatever you learn in one class, you get it done, either before or relatively soon after the next class, because eventually you're not going to be able to move on until you get, a few steps completed. Everything kind of snowballs off of what you learned the last class, so it's very important to try and get, what you learned in each class done relatively soon after that class is passed. So if no one has any other questions, we can go ahead and end the meeting. And I'm sure I will be working with each of you in a future class, or maybe a help out session, anything like that.